Okay, so Tron Ares has had its opening box office weekend. A lot was riding on this film. It had a lot of challenges on the way, getting made. I wish I could say it was worth it. It ended up being quite below my expectations. If you haven't seen my review, it was very disappointing. But also, to add to the disappointment is it did not do well at the box office. It did worse than Morbius. I remember reading an article from Variety that said that Tron Ares was aiming for a $50 million debut domestic box office opening. And then the article started coming out that the film's opening day was 14.3 million, lower than Morbius. And now we have the official entire opening weekend numbers to go over. This is an article from Variety. Box office Tron Ares stumbles with 33.5 million debut. And that's just the domestic numbers. So worldwide, it was 60 million in its global box office weekend, going against a budget of 180 million. So very disappointing. I think the trades were being very kind. Yeah, they're saying it stumbled and it's disappointing. This was a disaster. And it really just speaks to how much Disney fumbled the ball with this sequel, non-sequel Tron film. Leading up to the actual premiere, I was seeing a bunch of Q&As, press events, and a lot of people were asking about the legacy characters. There was a lot of love for both Tron films, for the original and Tron Legacy. So when adjusted for inflation, Tron Ares ended up doing about half of Tron Legacy's opening domestic box office numbers. And I know people like to throw this out there that Tron films have always bombed. I would argue against that. I mean, yes, the first one, it was a flop, but it definitely became a cult classic over time, and it was very much beloved. It was ahead of its time and underappreciated by just the general population, but a lot of people, kids and people involved in either computers or video games, it really did spark the imagination. And it definitely was groundbreaking in what it was doing. What it took to make that original film is really quite astounding. So it definitely made history. And I think for a film that was coming out decades later to kind of revive the property, I would call it maybe underwhelming or a modest box office for its 400 million worldwide that it made. But considering that the first film was a flop, I would say that that's very much a sign of potential success and profits. This is one of Disney's few original IPs, and I just think with a bit of TLC, they could definitely have made it one of its big name IPs that could have had a lot of other sources of revenue from other areas. And it just feels that they really didn't know what to do with Tron. But I think Tron Legacy really showed promise. And over the years, in the years since, Tron Legacy became very popular, accrued its own dedicated fan base that continued to grow. I feel like people were, in general, expecting a straight up sequel that would connect to the first two films. So I think it was very strange for Disney to really do this standalone and then not connect the film in any meaningful way, not really drive it forward, connecting what had already been established before. And I think more and more people started to realize that, and you really didn't do a lot to service just general audiences because Jared Leto is not a huge box office draw. In fact, it's been pretty well established that he's the opposite, that he's a box office poison. Now I'm seeing articles about whether or not this is ending Jared Leto's career as a franchise leading man, and I'd argue he was never that. And I don't know why it's taking Hollywood so long to figure this out. There was never that general audience appeal with Jared Leto, who was clearly, as the marketing went on, the hero, the star, and then the rest of your cast didn't really have a draw either. No one really knows Greta Lee. She was in past lives. Her work before wasn't widely known, so she's not a well-known actress. They really didn't give them a reason to be interested in this particular installment other than just flashy lights and 9-inch nails, and it just wasn't enough. The producers of this movie really didn't care. It really shows that they don't care about the IP. They don't care about its fans, but also they didn't really care about the general audiences who just wanted to be entertained by a good story with likable characters. Everyone loses from this because Disney just didn't know what to do. And it's very unfortunate because Bruce Boxleitner, his plea recently at a Comic-Con event was saying, please go see TRON ARES. I'm not in it, but opening box office is important and the original TRON wants to keep being the original TRON. He also was just saying that this could lead to something more, something that the fans want. He gets asked all the time if he was going to be in TRON ARES, and so was Garrett Hedlund. That's what the fans expected. And Disney just buried their head in the sand, and the producers clearly, for them not to know that, what the audience wanted, what its hopes and expectations and concerns were, they just completely ignored it. I mean, this is just basic market research. You want to produce a product that people will want to buy, and they just did not do even the most basic research to find out what the fandom wants and what that expectation was. And Disney just doesn't have the capacity to be so egomaniacal in their approach to famous IPs. You can tell that they just came to a point where they just have a famous IP and a big budget, and they think that was just the recipe for success. And then only recently they're having box office bomb after box office bomb. If a Star Wars film can bomb, if an Indiana Jones film can bomb, and then MCU films repeatedly bomb, I just don't understand what they were thinking in regards to TRON that has much less of a presence in the cultural zeitgeist than these other IPs do. Why you think this would be any different? You should have more concern and do that much more research and preparation to make sure that it will succeed. And time again, it seems that the decisions that Disney makes just comes across as self-sabotage. Every choice that they made seemed to be the wrong one, to the point that it seemed purposeful. And now I'm seeing online as well, people saying how much of a mistake it was to put Jared Leto in this huge role. To make that your prime marketing campaign is just to make Jared Leto the face of your film and not giving fans what they were expecting in terms of the legacy characters, the previous characters that we know and love, and having a continuation of their stories. Just having Jared Leto wasn't servicing them either. So this was just a recipe for disaster. So now it's being reported from speculation from inside sources that this could be the end of the TRON franchise on the big screen. I mean, I don't know if that means other mediums are possible. Bruce Boxleitner himself, who had that inside track, knew Disney, they like it, they don't like it. They had this very tumultuous relationship with this IP. So he was definitely front and center of it all. But now that this has happened, people are starting to speculate and see what went wrong. And here's one post talking about it. I sincerely hope this isn't true, but Disney has no one to blame but themselves. Leto's allegations, an overinflated budget, a subpar script to say the least. This is why you always have to put your best foot forward. Don't half-ass a revival because you can. If TRON is truly dead, it is because Disney didn't take the proper care to nurture and care for this franchise the way it deserved. And I couldn't agree more. This failure is entirely on their shoulders. And here's another post by The Angry Badger. The movie failed because you alienated and ignored the two people everyone wanted, Sam Flynn and the ISO Quorra. They also ignored TRON and Bruce Boxleitner. So it's a twofold failure. They failed to capture the interest and love of new fans with this film by going in their new direction. And they also just didn't bother to give fans that already loved this franchise to begin with and were eagerly anticipating this installment for 15 years, they failed to give them what they wanted, which is TRON and Sam Flynn, the continuing adventures of Sam Flynn and Quorra. Let me look at the article that this insider was quoted from that was saying that the TRON franchise looks to be over on the big screen. This was an article from The Hollywood Reporter. Headline is, "No one asked for this reboot. TRON may mark end of Jared Leto's franchise leading days. As ARES disappoints, insiders question whether the self-styled, boundary-pushing A-lister can still be counted on to carry a franchise vehicle to the bank." It's a top talent manager partner is the source of this information. In a world where Michael Fassbender, Ewan McGregor, and Benedict Cumberbatch are having a hard time getting lead roles, why would you even go to a person who can't open a movie and who has question marks around him as a person. With ARES flopping, The Insider says Leto's currency in town has run colder than Morbius's vampire blood. To be clear, the flameout of Tron isn't Leto's burden alone. Quote, "You could have had Ryan Gosling. It wasn't going to work," says the first agency partner. "No one asked for this reboot. If you say Tron Ares is good, we just needed a different actor, you're deluding yourself." I do think it would have helped somewhat to have a different leading actor, but at the end of the day, there was no saving that script. And it's true, no one asked for a reboot. We wanted a continuation of what came before. We wanted a sequel to Tron Legacy. We wanted Tron. This is not what we wanted. And even the film itself is trying to tease what they could have potentially given us, which is Sam and Quorra and an evil Dillinger program as the true bad guy. They could have given the fans what we wanted years ago. They could have done it right this time, and they didn't. We'll see what the future holds. It's definitely going to be a financial loss for them. The potential is there if they just treat it well and again give the fans what they want, but we have no reason to expect that. They could have made this IP a success. They could give the fans what they want time and time again and have actively chosen to undermine the success of this IP and to actively not give the fans what they want. But yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think there is any hope for Tron on the big screen or at all, if there is an indication that they could do other things, maybe on Disney Plus in a TV format, and what you think is the major reasons for this flop, if there's any hope for Disney to get back on track with this? Let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, have a very nerdy day.